Yes, hello and welcome. I'm Svenja from Svenja Christina Photography if you're new here. If you're a seasoned consumer of this channel, I'm so happy to have you here. Thanks for your support, for all the love. I really appreciate you. Today we're going to talk about the hue saturation adjustment layer. And with that layer you can change the color of anything, and this is driving me nuts! I'm not going to talk about anything today though. I'm going to specifically talk about how I'm changing the white dress of my girl to a lovely pink hue that matches her gloves and her tiara, and also how I'm going to change that to blue. It's the same process, but nice to see variation. So sometimes if you're a mom or a dad, then you know that our kids sometimes get very attached to specific colors and they refuse to wear anything else. And oftentimes these colors don't look exactly very flattering in images. So you have to resort to Photoshop to make it look half decent or even fabulous. Another thing, sometimes the clothing is fine. It looks beautiful, as is in my case. The dress is lovely, it's beautiful, it's a neutral color, everything you want basically, but it doesn't work with my background. And I think it would look a lot better if it popped more. So without further ado, let's go change some clothing color. As you can see, the dress is a whitish color, her gloves are pink, and when we zoom in, you will see that the stones in her tiara are also pink. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just change the entire dress, the white dress, to a pink color. I've already got some layer masks here. Let me go into the mask. I'm clicking option and clicking into the mask. Here you see the actual mask. The top part of her dress here is a lighter gray because I don't want it to be as intensely colored as the rest of her dress. I'm just going to go in here quickly to fix the mask. Fixing a mask, it ensures that you get really good images. So I would encourage you to use a lot of time masking your things out. And the other layer mask I wanted to show you, this is her tiara and these are her gloves. If I click here, you can see it. These are the stones in her tiara, and these are the gloves. If I was to change my mind later on, we're all set. We're already done the step of masking. When you first open the hue saturation adjustment layer, the preset mode is set to default. I never change that. And you're in the master mode. When you're taking this little triangle and you start sliding it around, notice how all of the colors change at once. Every single color is affected. And if you look down here and down here, you can see how they're changing too. So usually this doesn't yield the best results, so I'm going to reset that. So hue saturation lets you adjust the colors on your image based on the hue, the color. This is this layer right here, the saturation. This is how intense your colors look, really like intense. It's also called richness or purity. Here it's black and white, very desaturated. And let me just reset that. And the lightness. So this is how bright the image will be. If you put that all the way to plus 100, it's pure white. If you put it all the way down to minus 100, it's pure black. In order to get out of this master mode, you could go into the drop down and select the color that you would like to affect. The reds, the yellows, the greens, cyans, blues, or magentas. Those are your options. Or you could simply take this little nifty hand tool. This transforms into an eyedropper tool and you can just click it here and it affects the blues. So now I'm in the blues, and if I start sliding this back and forth, it starts to turn and change the color, but it's just the blues that are affected. Now this image has a lot of blue hues, but if you look like right here, the yellows and the reds, they're not affected at all. And I'm gonna command click and move my little hand slider back and forth, and it starts to change color. If I don't click command and just click in that area where there's the blues and start sliding it, I'm affecting the saturation. The other part that you can affect is the lightness. So if you bring it all the way up, the image gets brighter. If you take it all the way down, the blues, not the image, the color gets darker. I typically don't use the lightness slider. So I'm going to reset that right now. Let's say I wanted to affect this particular area right here. In master, all these eyedroppers here are grayed out. Now if I click here, my hand tool, and I'm going to start to click on a color, on a hue in this image, the master mode goes away and I'm in the color mode, like in the individual colors. And now all these eyedropper tools are available to me. Now I want to make sure that I have all of these different hues here selected and see what it's doing down here. Watch this down here as I'm going and moving back and forth here. It changes. Now say I accidentally went here. Oops, I would have thought that this would be a magenta. There, now I clicked a magenta. And I didn't want that. I'm gonna click here into my eyedropper minus to take the magentas away. Now, you may wonder, these little vertical sliders and the triangle sliders, what do they do? Well, they define the color range that we're affecting. The two vertical sliders on the inside, they affect the color range, and the two triangle sliders, like so, they affect the color drop off, so how gradual the adjustment is versus how sharp. The top rainbow bar or hue bar, this is the colors that we're modifying. At the bottom rainbow bar or hue bar is what we changed the colors to, the result. So I'm now selecting the blues, and there's also some magentas selected. Now I don't want those magentas, so I'm just gonna manually slide this over here to the blues, and I'm also gonna bring this over this way here. Maybe I'm gonna make it like so, to affect it like so. I'm going to take my hue slider and I'm changing it. I'm dragging it left and it becomes more cyan. See what's happening down here? These are the values that we're changing, the blues and some of the magentas as well, and we're changing them to a more cyan color right now. And the purples are not affected and the yellows aren't either. This is how the hue saturation slider is working. Now let's see what this looks like on the dress. I'm going to click this button here to reset everything, and I'm going to now select my dress color because it is white and I would like for it to look pink. So I'm going to click here and I see blues. Surprise, surprise. And I'm going to click now my eyedropper tool and I'm going to click more blues. It expands the range, as you can see down here. And when I click here, suddenly we have magentas. So it's a whole wide range of things. I have all of these selected right now, and I'm gonna start changing the hue. But it changes everything. So we don't want that because the dress has the same kind of color range as the snow here, but we don't want the snow, we just want the dress. So I have a mask here for the dress, and I'm gonna just take it and click into it while holding the option key and letting go. Yes, I would like to replace the layer mask. So now the hue saturation layer is only on the dress. Let's try that again. I am taking my slider here and it tells me it's magentas that it's affecting. Command, and I'm going to slide it over and it starts to become more reddish, the color that I would want, more pinkish. Now I also want to increase the saturation, so I'm just going to go in and drag it. I could also just drag it like so, not holding any other keys. So now we have a pinkish color here, but look at that, this is still not affected. So we're going to click here and it shows me reds. Who would have guessed that this is the reds? I would have thought yellow. So I'm clicking command to make these reds, look here, this is the colors I'm affecting, reds. I don't want them blue, so I need to move the other way. So I'm clicking command and I'm gonna drag it the other way. Watch the bottom rainbow bar, and it's sliding more and more into the pinkish range, and there we are. And we're gonna add some saturation. We can just continue to slide it, but do you see the result here? It's really blotchy. So I don't like using the hue saturation adjustment in this particular way to adjust the dress. I am going to use another feature, and that is the Colourize feature right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click that little button called Colourize, and already it gives me a pinkish hue, but I find that color to be too intense. So I'm going to go a little bit down in the saturation and the intensity. And to me, it looks too yellow. It doesn't really match the cooler magenta tone of her gloves. So I'm going to drag the hue slider all the way to where it looks more magenta. Oh, that blue looks nice. 235, remember that. And we're going to go up to maybe right here. I might change my mind. Maybe that's a tad too blue. I'm going to go up a little bit more. Around here looks pretty good to me. And it matches here, but I still find over here a little bit too intense. And I also see my layer mask isn't quite accurate. I need to take some of that out. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click 5 on my keyboard. This makes the opacity go down to 50%, and I'm going to make my brush even bigger. And I'm going to go ever so slightly here over it because the dress is a tulle type here, so the color wouldn't be as intense. It would be very slight. So this here looks natural to me. I'm not so sure about that color. I'm gonna go and adjust the opacity a little bit, dragging it down. Here looks okay. Maybe I'm gonna add a little bit more saturation to it. Yeah, I think that looks good right here. So if I were to color her dress pink, I would use the Colourize button, check the Colourize button, and then play with the hue and the saturation to get the tone that I would want. But I'm also interested in that blue tone. Now, of course, I forgot what it was. I should have written that down, but I'm confident we can find it again. So I'm going to drag this layer down, label it HS Pink, and I'm gonna turn it off. And then I'm gonna click into a new hue saturation adjustment layer. I'm going to drag my mask down, click the check mark, or just press enter, and then I'm going to click into the mask, gloves, and tiara, command click, and now I have marching ants here, and I'm going to make sure that I have a white brush, B for brush, D to ensure that it is pure white and pure black, opacity 100%, flow 100%, and I'm gonna start painting right here. And it doesn't matter where I paint because the only space that I can affect right now is inside those marching ants. I'm going to show you. I'm going to click option and I'm going to click into my layer mask and see with my white brush I can paint wherever I want to, and it doesn't matter because I can only affect the marching ants. Command D to get rid of the ants, Command 0 to get my full overview again, and clicking into the little circle, half circle icon to get out of the layer mask. I'm going to label this one here HS Blue, and then I'm going to click Colorize, and everything is colorized, and we are going to take that hue slider and slide it towards the blues, and we want 235, and we can't find it. It won't let me, so I am impatient. I'm just going to punch in the 5 right here. There we go. Now, this is, if I drag the saturation slider up, it gets more into a royal blue, and I could try and lift it here, but the thing is, I don't really want to affect the overall brightness of that spot here. See, this is standing out as super bright right now. I don't want to do that. That's why I don't use the lightness slider. So I'm gonna set that right back to 0. And I'm gonna decrease my saturation to drag this down to a spot that I like. And I'm just going back and forth, as you can see, because I want to make sure that I get the right kind of blue hue. I want to have enough that it looks blue, but I don't want it to be overpowering, and right now that's too strong for my liking. So I'm going to adjust with the opacity slider. I'm going to drag that down. Nice pale blue. And the good thing is I can always come in and change my mind. Go away from the computer for a while rest my eyes, come back with a fresh pair of eyes and adjust the colors. But this is how it's done. There, I think that looks pretty good. We have a nice light blue hue here. I hope you found this tutorial helpful and that you learned something and that you now have another nifty trick in your pocket on how to make your images stronger. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and turn on that notification bell so that you know when the next video goes live. If you have any questions for me about this tutorial or any requests of what you would like me to cover here in the future, please let me know in the comments below. I look forward to hearing from you, and I thank you for watching this tutorial and having coffee with me. Always nicer to do that in company, isn't it? Anyway, I see you next week, and I hope you have a great time until then.